Well, hi there. So we're going to be making a Happy Images beanie hat. And so I've already started it. And this is what the stitch looks like on the hat. So it's got a nice texture to it. I can see it. And then I did an owl eye brim, which is right here. And I'm on a Cindy Wood loom. It's a 5/8 inch, and it's 9 inch. It's a little small for most women. It's a kid's hat size, but you can do it any size you want. For me, for beanies, I do 9 inch because I have a very, very small head. And for kids too, I do the 9 inch. And most people use a 9 1/2 or 9 3/4 inch loom. Um, but you can use any size loom that you want for this, and it can be even or odd. Okay, so I'm on the 5/8, and the yarn I'm using, this is a bulky yarn, number 5 yarn. It's Bergeret de France, and the color of this one, I can find it on here. This one, I'm pretty sure this one is in French. Some countries you can get them in English, so I don't really read French. But it's 50% wool and 50% acrylic. And I can't really find the yarn color, but you can see from what you're looking at here, if you were looking for this yarn specifically, this is the color mix of it. Okay, and loom hook isn't made anymore, but they have similar ones on Etsy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you over to the video for the brim. And because it's an owl eye brim, and I already have a video for an owl eye brim, so you just do the brim just like the video that I have there, and then we will go right into the stitch. Okay, so we'll see you in a bit. So I'm going to start by doing a chain cast on. It's a crochet chain cast on. I'm going to do it without a crochet hook. So what I do, I just take it, make a loop, just like that, and then put the working yarn through it and have a slip knot, and then I just place that on the first peg. And then I take my loom hook, put it under the loop, and pull the working yarn through to get a loop. And then I tighten it by pulling on the working yarn here in the back and make sure that this stitch is tight. And then I just take that loop, put it behind the next peg, holding on to it, and pull the working yarn through it. And that's all there is to the cast on. Put the loop behind, working yarn through, tighten it up, behind, working yarn through, tighten it up. And at any time, if you want this loop to be smaller, you just pull on it. So working yarn behind and tightening it up. I mean the loop behind and tightening it up. And that's all there is to it. And we just do that all the way around the loop. So I'm just going to put you on pause because it'd be boring watching me do it all the way around the loom. And we will catch up when I'm close to the other side. Okay, so here I am almost at the end. So I take the loop, put it behind the peg, tighten it up, And then here's the one we started at, and so you just take the loop and let it fall over there, and just take the loom hook and knit it over, and now it's all secured and you're ready to go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is finish the cast on. So I'm going to do a row of owl eye. And so I just do a U-wrap over peg 1, come over, and then I do a wrap over peg 1 and 2, and just knit it over, and knit it over. Whatever peg you're on, peg 1, you go over peg 1 and 2, knit it over. I have lots of videos of owl eye on my channel, so you can go watch those if you'd like to see more of a demonstration of it. And then just around and knit it over. And peg 1 over peg 1 and 2, knit it over. And we just do owl eye all the way around. Okay, so I will meet you back up at the beginning peg again. Okay, so I've done my row of owl eye all the way around the loom, and now I'm going to do one row of purl, and it'll be the only purl in the whole hat. And I just want to do it here at the beginning of the brim to make sure that the edge stays nice and straight. So how you purl is you put the working yarn into the loop. There we go. And then pull up the working yarn, take the loop off, and let the loop fall to the front. So take the hook, put it in the loop, pull up the working yarn, and you pull up the whole loop and put the new loop on. Under, pick up the working yarn, put it on the peg, and tighten it up. And there's lots and lots of videos on YouTube if you haven't purled before. So we just do one row of purl. So I will meet you up when we get back to the starter peg again. Okay, so I've done my row of purl, and now I'm just going to do owl eye, and our brim is going to be owl eye stitch. So how we start that, there's our peg 1. We always come over and do a U-wrap on peg 1, and now we can go and do a second wrap over peg 1 and one over peg 2. And wherever we are, we're on peg 1, so we wrap 1 and 2, and we just keep going like that. And you can make your brim however long you like it. You could make just a 1-inch brim if you like thin brims. I'm going to do about 1.5 inches. If you like a really long brim, you can do one that's 2 inches long. So I'm just going to keep working in owl eye till I get the brim the length that I want it, and then we can catch up. Okay, so we'll see you in a few. Okay, so now that you have your brim done, we go just directly into the stitch, and it is a 2-row stitch, and you can start with either of the rows, row 1, row 2, and the first row I'm going to do is the twisty stitch. And so to do the twisty stitch on peg 1, I'm going to do a U-wrap over it, and then I'm going to come backwards over the same peg and do a U-wrap going backwards and knit it off. And then I'm going to go to the next peg. And you're going to want to be pretty loose, because otherwise it's going to get hard to knit this one over, for example, the second one. and you'll have a little bit of work to the right hand side, and that's okay because that's what gives you the texture to this stitch. So that's all there is to it. Nice close up. It gets a little blurry too close though. You go over, knit it, come back over the same peg, going the opposite direction, knit it over, then from behind you go in front of the next peg, knit it over, back, knit it over, and so that's all there is to it. Very, very easy stitch. And I'm just going to go all the way around the loom doing this stitch. Okay, so there's a little gear where you can slow things down if you need to. And I'm just going to put you on pause because it's just going to get boring watching me do the same stitch as I go around the loom. Although I will show you if you start to get too tight, so this is really tight and you're coming back over and this is tight, you just pull on it and we'll loosen it up. It's that easy. This one, you were getting too tight, just pull up on this a little bit. That'll make it easier for that to come over. Then when you come over this way, pull this looser. And you'll have loosened it up if you start to get too tight. So it's pretty easy that way. If you can practice knitting loose and use stitches that will be tighter for you when you knit them loose anyway, it will really help keep you from getting carpal tunnel or any kind of repetitive wrist injury because you're nice and loose. Okay, so I'm not even quite halfway around, so I'll put you on pause and we will catch up when we're ready to do the next row. Okay, so I'm back and I'll do the last twisty stitch on the last peg here, and I'll show you right how to get into owl eye from there. So for the first owl eye peg, you go over in a U-wrap. Then you're going to go from behind in front again, right? But in front of the next two. And then you want to always keep 2 stitches on all the pegs. And then we're just going to do owl eye. And I have lots of owl eye videos, but when you do owl eye, you're always on peg 1. You wrap in front of peg 1 and 2 and knit them off, keeping it loose. Now you're on peg 1 again, in front of peg 1 and 2, knit them off. Then this becomes peg 1 in front of 1 and 2, and knit them off. You start to get too tight, just loosen it up. Okay, too tight, just loosen it up as you go. And we're just going to go all around the room, all around the loom, doing the owl eye stitch. Okay, until we get back to the last peg, and then I'll show you how to switch from the owl eye row into the twisty row. Okay, so I'll just put you on pause again. Okay, so I'm almost at the end of the row doing the owl eye stitch. So we come here, I'm on the last peg before the first peg, and so I'm just going to take it and rewrap it, right? And we're going to go right into the twisty stitch so we can go over the first peg, and then we just do the twisty. And then we continue by doing a twisty row. Okay, so it's just 2 rows, owl eye and twisty, and you can do them in any order, it doesn't matter, or start them in any order after the brim. So just do it as long as you want the hat to be, and you know, whatever hat length works for you for whatever size, because with the cast off we're doing, it's going to be only about 1/2 inch longer So just take that into account when you do your measurement for how long you want your hat to be. So I'm going to take you over to a video for doing the cast off, and then we can meet up and see what this hat looks like as I do the cast off here, because I have a ready-made video for the cast off and it worked out perfect. And I always like to do that now when I can, because that way I know I have a good video for the bind off, and if I do a mistake or something and have to do a whole lot of editing, very time consuming. So what I'll do is I'll give you the bind, or you'll go as long as you want, and then you'll be seeing the bind off. So you can pause the video now and get it as long as you want, and then when you continue on, you will see the bind off. Okay, so we'll see in a bit. Okay, so we're going to do a reduced brim on the hat. And so the first thing we do, and I've already done this, of course, is done the 1 row of E-wrap. So you can do this not just with this hat, but with any hat that you have that you want to do a reduced brim, so that it's not bulky, so it lays flatter, and it works especially nice on slouch hats. So whenever you do that, always do a row of E-wrap just before you start, no matter what stitch you are doing. And the reason for that is E-wrap is nice and loose, so it makes it easier to move stitches over. Okay, so that's the reason for that. So you do the row of E-wrap, and then we're going to start moving stitches to reduce. And this is a very easy reduction to get a flatter brim. We're going to count every 4 pegs, 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the 4th peg, we're just going to take it off the loom and then move it over to the peg before. So now you have 2 stitches on the loom, and number 4 is blank. And then you go 1, 2, 3, 4 again. You take the loom off, or the stitch off, and put it on the peg before. So now if we go from the beginning, we got 1, 2 pieces on here and a blank peg, 1, 2 pieces on here and a blank peg. And you're going to do that all the way around the loom. Every 4th, you're going to be moving over to the 3rd. When you get to the end, if it's not equally divisible, you'll have some extra loops with thread on, yarn on, that you can't move over, and that's okay. Leave them on. It's better to leave them on than to reduce too much. So I'll meet you back when we get all the way and that we reduced by moving every 4th peg onto the 3rd. So we'll see you in a few. Okay, so I've gone all the way around now, and I've moved them all over, and mine did turn out fairly even. I have just 3 here instead of 2. So that's all because it's not evenly divisible. Okay, so now what we're going to do is do another round of E-wrap. And how you do that is you E-wrap all the pegs that have yarn on them, knit them over, and with this one we take both loops over, then go behind any empty pegs and E-wrap the pegs that have yarn on them, taking the 2 off, skipping by going behind the empty peg, and then just E-wrapping. Okay, so you just do that all the way around the loom, and I will see you back at the beginning. Okay, so I've E-wrapped around the loom, and now we're going to do our next reduction. So we have the 3 pieces of yarn that are on the 3 pegs, and then on either side pegs with no yarn. So we're always going to be working with the ones that have yarn on them, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and you're going to take the yarn from number 2 now and move it over to number 1, And then on the next 3 peg grouping, you're going to do the same thing. Now on the first one, I had 4 yarns. So here, I'm going to just ignore the extra yarn here. And on 2, I'm just going to move it over to 1, like that. Okay, so you just go all the way around, taking the yarn from number 2 and putting it on number 1. It's a little awkward for me. And I'll meet you up when we have that all done. Okay, now that you've done that, you have yarn on every second peg. So now we just E-wrap around, doing the same thing, going behind the pegs with no yarn and E-wrapping the pegs with yarn. Taking both loops over, going behind the ones with no yarn, and just E-wrapping. So I'll see you when you have that done. Okay, so you finished. And then all we're going to do now is take this yarn and put it around the loom, and then another half. We just want to make sure we have it long enough, and cut it, because we're all reduced, and now we're just going to take it off the loom. Whoops. That off there. So you just take a needle. You can use your loom hook also if you want. You don't have to have a needle. And I'm just going to thread the needle with the yarn. There, got it this time. There we go. And then all you're going to do is go around the loom and just scoop up that yarn and get it inside this. So we go up and we just scoop up that loop. Okay, so I will just meet you up when we've scooped up all the loops. Okay, and then just be sure you've picked up every single loop, and then go back into the first loop that you started with. Then you can just take your needle off. At this point, I'm just going to cut this a little bit smaller so it's easier to work with. And then take my loom hook, and I'm just going to start popping all these off the loom. You can even do it with your fingers. There, and it's off the loom. And then at this point, all we're going to be doing is drawing in the hat. So just draw it in a little ways, and then you're going to take the yarn and put it to the inside of the hat, although the inside of this hat looks really good too, just as good as the outside. Okay, and then you're just going to pull it closed until you get it all the way closed. Nice and tight. Now what I do is I hold it tight, and I usually go in and check and make sure that I've drawn it up evenly, and you can see that. So just a nice flattened brim. But now we can put the needle back on, cut this shorter again. Just save enough to sew it up and weave it in. And thread your needle. Okay, now I want to make sure that this is nice and tight so that we don't end up with a hole anywhere. And then I'm just going to put this through a couple of the yarns and make a knot. And I got that tail stuck in there. There we go. Just make a nice tight knot to hold it closed. And then you can see where the center was right there. And then I'm just going to sew around it. Now, if you were sure this was always going to be the inside of the hat, you could even just sew it across. But I'm going to sew around to keep it neat, for the reason that I might be using this side too. This hat is very nicely reversible, but it gives you that option. And I'm just going to sew around. And every once in a while, I'm just going to put a little knot on it. There, get that working iron out of there and sewing around here. And then I'm just going to do another knot. I just wouldn't want it to ever come undone. And when you're sure you have the hat all very securely sewn, you just do another little knot and you are done. There we go. And then you can weave in the end of the yarn. I'm not going to bother doing that now, just to keep it there. Turn the hat to the other side, and there you go. You have a nice flat brim. See? Just flattens it out. It has a really nice little shape to it. If you laid it down like this, you can just see how nice and flat it is. Just an easy way to reduce your brim. And it's really great on slouchy hats. Okay, and here we are with the finished hat. I did the same bind off you did, and there it is. I put it on the mannequin, which has a small head, even smaller than the hat, but it's enough to put it on that you can see how it fits and that it is a nice flat head. So it's nice and flat, and it's a very cute hat. Look really nice on somebody who's a bit larger head than this little mannequin, but that displays it for you. And there's what the chain cast on looks like when you look under the brim. Very nice looking. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the video and the hat, and until next time, bye.